Hello, Labbers! So this week we're going to finish up talking about dramatic play, which we started last week. And this week we're going to be talking more of the how-to rather than the why. So the first thing that we're going to do is walk through how I would do dramatic play if I were a coach at Rosa Parks. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to start by reading. The reason why you start with reading is that it's going to introduce a new idea. So then when you start doing it in real life, the kid kind of has this background knowledge and they're able to make better inferences than if they've never heard of this topic before. It's going to give them access to the vocabulary that they're going to need, sort of give them an example of what the script is going to look like, define who the characters are, what they do, and make sure that when you're doing this reading, especially for dramatic play, you're integrating a lot of comprehension questions, especially towards the beginning of the week, to make sure that the students know what's happening in the story, they understand who the characters are, what the script is, and what is expected of them. Because the number one thing to remember with dramatic play is that if a kid doesn't have access to the script, they won't be able to act it out. It would be as if I asked you to act out to me what a scuba diver does. Unless you've had practice watching a movie about scuba diving or you've gone scuba diving, you're probably not going to know how to put on all the gear, how to make the gear work, what kind of lingo you would use with other scuba divers, what kind of fish you might see. If you don't have background knowledge with that specific activity and you don't know the vocabulary and the kind of roles that everyone plays, you're not going to be able to act it out because it's impossible. You just don't know. You can guess, but you won't know. The next thing that you have to do once you've given them the background knowledge is to get their attention. And this is because sometimes the kids don't want to play at the dramatic play center, especially if there are other options, especially because the kids that have low language, they know that it's hard. They would rather go play with dolls than be forced to talk and interact with other peers because they know that they have a weakness in that area. They're very smart. A lot of the preschoolers at my placement, they know, especially the ones with articulation problems, they know which words are hard for them to pronounce. And so you have to kind of trick them into doing it sometimes. It's your job to make the center seem fun and exciting. So be really loud and happy and use lots of self-talk if no students come over at first. So for example, if I were doing a vet day, I might take the animals and be like, oh my goodness, my kitty is sick. My kitty has a cold. Oh, it keeps sniffing and coughing. Oh, poor kitty. I better take it to a vet. I need help. I need a vet. And I would just start acting out and being super dramatic. And then the kids are going to look over like, what the heck is wrong with this lady? And they're going to be over and be like, dude, why are you crying? And you'll just keep acting and being like, my kitty is so sick and needs so much help. And the kids at that age, they have started to build up their empathy. And so they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I'll help you. And so then at that point, you would start working through the script of, okay, you be the vet, I'm going to be the customer, and start giving them access to the vocabulary and the script that they need. On the other hand, sometimes you'll get too many students. They'll be super into it. A lot of kids really do like the dramatic play because they get to dress up and act, and especially the more outgoing students really like this center because they like that kind of environment. So if there are too many students, it can take away from the experience. So try to limit it to like 3 or 4 at a time. And if there are more than that, have the students take turns. So maybe once, excuse me. Oh, I'm sick, not the kitty. So if there are too many students, you can have like one group of 4 work through the script, and then you can swap them out for the other kids. And if you do have a kid who's like on your caseload, meaning if you have a kid that you're paired with at Rosa Parks, you're going to want to let them go first just in case it takes longer and you run out of time. You're going to want to prioritize that student if they are interested. the next thing that you're going to do after reading and getting the kids over there is to go through the script. So usually there's going to be a little sheet of paper, and it's going to have like a little blurb at the top and explain what all of the materials are. You're going to go through all the characters and their roles, talk about the new vocabulary. You might give demonstrations of what each character may say. At this point, it's really helpful to have other adults to act this out with. It's not always possible, but if there is an aide or a teacher or especially a coach, they can be a really great tool to bring over so that you can give an example of what it should look like. That's partly why the coaches are there, is to help give that support that you might need. And then make sure that you give time for the students to ask questions. Instead of asking, do you have any questions? Because that's yes or no. It's better to ask, what questions do you have? And they might have some and they might not have any, and that's okay. And then you'll just go through it with them, make everything seem really new and exciting. And you might have to repeat some of the information as long as the students understand. This is the most important part. And this is going to be most important at the beginning of the week versus the end of the week, because at the beginning of the week, it's brand new. A lot of them have never heard of this before, and so they're going to need more support. By the end of the week, they've done it all week, so they understand who the characters are, what their roles are, and they're starting to be able to use it more independently. And then the last thing that you need to do is to assign roles. So let the students pick out who they want to be, give them a name tag. They usually have name tags with the Dramatic Play Center. And if the students want to be a certain role, like if all the students want to be the vet and nobody wants to be the customer, you can take turns, right? So each student has, you'll go through the script one time with each person being the vet. The students can pick out any items that they might need to successfully play their role. For example, I'll just keep going with the vet thing since that's the theme, I guess. I just picked it out of nowhere and now it's our theme. So if it's the customer, then they might be able to pick out a stuffed animal. So they could pick out a cat or a dog or a reptile like a frog or something, a rabbit, a turtle. And then they could pick out like a little pet carrier to put it in, maybe put a Band-Aid on their animal. The vet could put on the stethoscope or get out the cash register so they can ring them up. Maybe they have like the little knee hammer thing. And so then once they have all the items, you've gone over the script, you've read the book, right? It's really fun. They're all excited. You're going to watch them begin to role play. And at the beginning, you're going to give them more support as they adjust to their roles, and then fade their support and let them explore the script once they get the idea. Because remember, there's no like set script. Like there's an idea of the types of language that each person will use, the kinds of interactions they'll have, but it's not like a movie script where they have to say the same thing line for line. That would be ridiculous. So like at a vet, you're probably going to have the vet be like, oh, what's wrong? And the student's going to explain what's wrong with their animal. But that could be very different, right? So maybe the animal broke their leg, maybe they have a cold, maybe they threw up, maybe they fell off the slide and they need a kiss or something on their knee. So there's lots of things that could be wrong, and then the vet is going to have to respond to whatever that thing is. So maybe the vet every time will be giving a checkup with the stethoscope or whatever. Maybe they have a flashlight to look in the eyes, but then they're going to have to be like, okay, it hurt its knee. Here's a Band-Aid. Bye. Right. And so they're going to have to adjust their language based off of what the first child says is wrong. So at the beginning of the week, usually they're going to copy exactly what you did. So in my example, I said that my kitty had a cold. So maybe they're going to give the kitty some cold medicine and tell it to drink some water, get some rest. And so once you've acted out that, the kids will usually imitate that the first day or two, and then they'll start to change it a little bit throughout the week. After a few minutes, or once the role has kind of worked itself out, have the students switch. And if there are more roles and not students waiting for a turn, they can switch again. And if not, then other students who might want to interact can come. So the goal here is to have that perspective taking aspect of it. So if you do have like 2 or 3 students and one's the vet, one's the nurse, one's the customer, then they're going to switch after, like those same 3 students are going to do it again, but in a different role, because you want to give them that perspective taking idea, so that they understand like the script from different roles. And then if there are students, like I said, let those students have a turn first and then swap out the entire group. Then you can do that, but make sure that the students have a chance to switch roles first, because that's a really important part of dramatic play. So then I included some special considerations. And I've sort of hinted at this throughout so far, is that there's going to be a huge difference between the beginning versus the end of the week. And that's because at the beginning of the week, the vocabulary and the script will be new to most of the students, so they're going to need more support. And that's like actually during the dramatic play part, you're going to have to maybe help them know what to say. You might have to be like, maybe the vet will be like, "What's wrong?" And then the student will just look at you and you're gonna have to whisper like, "They hurt their knee, oh no." And then towards the end of the week, they know what to expect. So then they're usually a little bit more fluid and independent with it. Also, during the first read through of the book, the students might not know the answers. So they're going to need more content and relate questions remember the car, right? So the content is like what animal is this? And it's a cat. Oh, my Roomba just knocked something over. And it's a cat. And the relate questions could be like, do you have a pet? Have you ever taken your pet to the vet? And then towards the end of the week, you'll start to add in more abstract questions. You'll pull back the content, because if you read the same book every day for 5 days, the students will start to learn what the book is about. They'll know the words. They'll be able to kind of read it along with you, not word for word, but they'll like know what's going to happen next. And so it's better to have more of those abstract questions and relate questions so that the students can get practice with those, because the more that they get right, the more confident they'll be, and then they'll be more likely to answer those questions again in the future, because they'll be pumped up. They'll be like, oh yeah, I know how to answer those questions. I did that in reading one time. And then during the first playthrough, as I said before, you may need to provide explicit examples and the students may imitate that word for word, and that's okay. But I would even encourage you, like in that first run through, like once you switch roles, so I guess the second run through, to give a different script, right? So maybe the first time your kitty has a cold and then they switch roles. And then the second time a student has a puppy and the puppy scraped his knee. And so that just shows them like, oh, okay, like I can switch what's happening. I don't have to do it word for word. And then again, towards the end of the week, the students should be confident with all of the characters and roles. They should be able to improvise and make comments that are not direct imitations of the adult example. During book reading, the students should be able to answer harder content questions and abstract questions. And as the week goes on, ask the students questions that tie back to their real life experiences to make it even more impactful. So that's kind of like what I was saying with, have you ever been to the vet before? But then you can kind of take it even further and be like, have you ever gone to the doctor before? Like, have you ever had a sore throat? Or have you ever scraped your knee? What did you do when you scraped your knee? If you scrape your knee again, what should you do? If you have a sore throat again, what should you do? And just kind of work them through the problem solving aspect of it. That's a little bit more abstract, but also very real life and relatable for the students as they get older. I go to my teacher, I ask to see the nurse. I go to my mom and ask to go to the doctor. If I scrape my knee, I can ask for a Band-Aid. If it's not that bad, I can just shake it off, So that's kind of important for this age as they learn to be a little bit more independent. Changing topics. So some students might be resistant to change. And typically at Rosa Parks, we do a theme every week. You guys saw this all last semester, right? With all of the crafts that we did. There's lots of different themes and we change every single week. And so one thing that you can do to kind of make that change a little bit easier is to tie back vocabulary from previous units. So maybe if you finish the vet station and the kids loved checking out at the end, maybe the next week you'll have like a grocery store theme or a restaurant theme, and you guys can talk about the cash register again, and you can talk about checking out, or maybe you'll have a theme where there's still like a customer and something else, and be like, oh, remember there was a customer at the vet and now there's a customer at the grocery. You've been a customer before. And so then it just makes it a little bit more smooth as you transition. That's not always possible, especially if you're going from like the vet theme to the princess theme where you have to like rescue the princess, but also in that theme there's a dragon. So be like, oh, there's a dragon, I wonder if the dragon's ever been to the vet. Oh my goodness, it would be so scary to be a dragon vet. What if you got on fire? So yeah, there's always a way. If you're creative enough, there's a way to tie it together. You could also ease into the new unit with a book. Of course, at Rosa Parks, there's going to be a new book to read, a craft. I really like doing crafts. At Rosa Parks, it's not always possible just because you kind of have to go along with whatever the teacher's doing. But I really like doing crafts with the kids that I had in clinic and then also in the schools, because the kids get so excited. They love creating things. It's really exciting. It's a great way to introduce vocabulary because you can talk, not hi Roomba. Okay. Because you can talk about like, oh, the eyes go at the top, the mouth goes at the bottom, the circle goes on the square, right? So you're talking a lot about like prepositional vocabulary, but also very specific vocabulary to the unit. So for example, if you're doing races, you could make like a gold medal and a silver medal and a bronze medal and talk about what each of them means, talk about the colors. The kids can color it themselves. That also helps with fine motor, which makes OTs and teachers happy. So that's always a great thing to do if possible. You can also talk about the new topic during a station earlier in the day, like at breakfast or recess. I would always really like to do this at breakfast time, and be like, hey guys, guess what we're doing this week? Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. We're doing something new. We're talking about princesses, right? And so then the kids get really hyped really early in the day. So then they're looking forward to dramatic play all day. And you can even bring it up at recess to be like, oh my gosh, after recess, guess what we gonna do? We gonna be princesses. And the kids get really excited. You can also hype up the other kids in the class. So if there's one student who's really resistant to change, if you can make all of their friends really excited, the student, even if they're not excited, will sometimes like pretend to be excited because they want to fit in with their friends, which isn't always the best way to motivate students, but it is one way that you can use in conjunction with lots of other different ideas that we just talked about. And then some important things for dramatic play. One, always have tangible prompts or props, because the student will be able to have a more clear idea of what it is, especially words like stethoscope, which are, first of all, hard to pronounce. Second of all, it's not very iconic, right? It's just very abstract kind of. So if the student's able to like see it and manipulate it, they'll be able to understand what it is better than if you're just like, oh yeah, it's something that you put in your ears and then you can listen to someone's heart. That's kind of hard to understand because the student's still trying to learn body parts and how everything kind of relates. So that's not very clear. When it's appropriate, let the kids design the props because it's going to help them connect in a deeper way. That's what I meant earlier with the like ribbons, like you can make like a gold, silver, and bronze medal, and that's going to help the kids understand like, oh yeah, like gold is number 1, like silver is number 2, bronze is number 3, because you can make them in order. And then you can have them practice racing, and as they race they get the medal afterwards, and it's really exciting because they made that medal, so they're really proud that they're able to get it. Try to keep some theme or some items recurrent throughout themes. So like I said earlier, the cash register or a mailbox, because then the students will get even more exposure to that vocabulary. Repetition is great. And remember that at the beginning, it's going to sound more scripted, and at the end, it should feel more natural. So hopefully between last week and this week, you have a deeper understanding of why we do dramatic play, why it's important, and how you do it, what it kind of looks like. I think those videos last week were super helpful because they kind of gave you a little bit of insight into what it's going to look like in real life, and combined with some of the readings to give you that deeper understanding of why we do it and why this is important. Hopefully that makes it a little bit more salient for you guys. And this homework assignment is going to be really exciting. So this week, I'm going to give you guys access to the drive again, and we're going to keep working on these scripts and making our own scripts. And the reason why I'm so excited for this is that we're getting so many great ideas from you guys. We're getting new ideas, we're getting new scripts, and I think that a lot of it it's just going to better Rosa Parks, and it's going to help the kids so much because it's something that they're really going to be able to use. Your work really matters, and I hope you guys understand that and you guys can feel that. I'm really proud of all of you guys. You're working really hard. We're almost halfway through the semester, which is crazy to think about. So keep up the hard work. Next week, or maybe the week after, I think next week, we're going to start getting into reading research articles and doing our journal club. So we're going to have a little bit of a transition into something new that we haven't been doing before with labs. So hopefully you guys are excited for that. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.